pleased and honored to be your program administrator here for the next year and a half. I'm here with my colleague today, Steve Mann, and we're going to be talking a lot about combustion appliance safety protocols. We've got a good agenda for you today. Next slide. Please hit record. I'm sorry, let's make sure that we get this webinar recorded so that we can put it up on our website and be able to play it back later.
Yep, I'm recording, Bruce.
Okay, you're recording. So again, just for the sake of posterity, my name is Bruce Mast. I'm with Build It Green. We've got a great agenda for you today. We're going to follow kind of our standard format. If you've been participating in our webinars here, this is the fourth in a series. We're going to have a quick update from Joanne Panchana, our contractor administrator from PG&E. Our contractor spotlight today is on Brower Mechanical, and we're pleased to have Dwayne Knickerbocker with us today. We're going to be spending a lot of time talking about the augmented combustion appliance safety protocols, and I'm guessing that's what most of you are here for. And then we're also going to end with an update on cooperative marketing pilot that's rolling out here in the Bay Area, in keeping with our practice of featuring a local government initiative that ties in with Energy Upgrade California. So before we jump into the agenda, I want to give a little bit more background about where we're at with the program launch and the transition. I'm guessing that many of you are participating contractors, and we're thrilled to have you on board. As you know, or hopefully know, that if you are a participating contractor in the pilot, you're a participating contractor for the full program. There is a process for updating your enrollment status, and you've gotten through the month of July to do that. If you missed our May 25th webinar, that webinar focused on the enrollment process, and so that'd be a good place to go back and review what the revised enrollment looks like. Also, our June 8th webinar talked about the new job submittal process, and so you might want to look at those slides as well. All of that is available on the Build It Green utility.org website, which is the portal for contractor enrollment and submitting jobs. There is a resources tab there that has recordings and PowerPoint decks from these past webinars, and we'll be recording this one as well and posting it for those who aren't able to join us today. So we launched this last week with our new job submittal system. We did that on Wednesday. We're starting to get jobs coming in. We've got new contractors enrolling. We've got current contractors starting to update your current enrollment, so that's all very, very exciting, very heartening. We're in a transitional phase, and so right now we've set up temporary data forms for you to provide that we will then enter into our tracking system on your behalf. In early July, we're targeting July 11th, we'll start transitioning over and setting up so that you can enter your own jobs right into the tracking system. It's called the Compass tracking system, and all your jobs will be there. You'll see your prior activities and the jobs that are currently in process, and we will have more training on that in early July as that rolls out. For today, let's focus on the combustion safety protocols. But before that, let's have a short update here from Joanne about what's going on from PG&E's perspective. Joanne?
Hi, thank you, Bruce. So I want to take a few minutes to go over and point out some of the successes that we've been having as a combined program over the last several months. So as of now, we have over 850 jobs submitted, which is wonderful. Over half of those jobs are completed, and interestingly enough, of the completed jobs, 12% of those have gotten the maximum rebate, meaning they're over 40% savings. And our highest savings percentage is still at 66. So as you can imagine, for those customers, that is a great achievement. I also want to point out and thank you all for helping to achieve this. But in May, we had one of our highest months of new applications. We had 134 new applications come through in May, and I thought that was great until I saw June's total. So we still have a little bit of time left in June to to achieve a little bit more, but so far in June we have over 170 applications coming in. So obviously there's been a significant increase in volume, and we're happy to be a part of that. And hopefully what we're telling you today, and especially with the marketing, co-marketing program at the end, we can help you increase your numbers so you can start submitting even more. So that's my update. I'll go ahead and pass it on, but feel free to ask me questions at the end.
Great. Next slide. Ed, would you like to introduce Dwayne?
Yes, I will. I'll take it from here. You know, during these program update webinars, we've been offering a snapshot of a participating contractor, and today it's Dwayne Knickerbocker of Brower Mechanical. They began as an HVAC services company back in 1978, but today they're very active in both the PG&E and the Smut Home Performance Program. So, Dwayne, we'd like you to, thanks for offering to take a few minutes here to share with everyone how your company evolved from HVAC into whole house upgrades, because I think you've got a really unique story to tell there. And then if you could, you know, be gracious enough to share some of your biggest business challenges, but also some advice that you'd have for other contractors that are enrolled in the program and want to start, you know, producing the kind of numbers that you're getting.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ed. My name is Dwayne Knickerbocker with Brower Mechanical. As Ed stated, you know, we started off in 1978 as strictly an HVAC service company. Over the next 10 years, we became a complete HVAC provider. Really got into the home performance probably for a lot of different reasons and why you got into it. I could not understand why I could send 2 installers, let's just say Bill and Bob, and they would have a trained 3-ton unit, and they would be headed to a 1,500 square foot home, and they would do the install, and they'd have no issues. I could take the same installers with the same trained 3-ton unit to a different 1,500 square foot home, and there would be customer issues, and it just was driving me crazy. So around 2003, I really started to get serious on how could this really, why is this? And what I actually discovered is there was this whole building science world out there. And it really started to take away the mystery of why I was having these problems and these callbacks. And in 2006, went through the CBPCA home performance classes. And since then, I made it a part of our business ever since. Not a huge part, but a part of our business. Now, with all the opportunity that's actually out there in this home performance world, our residential install department this June was our biggest sales month that we've ever had in our history. And it didn't beat our month just by a little bit. It beat it by over 27% of the biggest month we've ever had in our history, and we still have 2 more days to go for the month. So, like Ed said, he asked me to, you know, share, in my opinion, some of the challenges in getting into the home performance program. It is a program that is very, very complex. So really, someone has to own, understand, and develop the processes of the program. There are many changes in the program, let alone just what it takes to understand what does it take to get up to speed and comfortable with the existing program. In my opinion, a company getting into this should start slow. This is just my opinion. You really need to test different homes to determine what your home testing price matrix really should look like. Perform work on different homes, determine what your pricing guide needs to be, and put a job into Energy Pro. Then you can actually develop your field assessment and customer questionnaire forms. You have to build your customer assessment report. Then you can really start to really understand and build your team. And don't kid yourself, there are a million steps in between. But the key to it is start. There will be roadblocks, work through them. The one thing that I've learned over the years, it doesn't take a huge rebate to sell the home performance programs to customers. It just takes a rebate. Just to build some validity that the utility, the state, and the feds are actually back in the program, and it is of value to the customers. that's been my experiences with the program, and I'd like to hand it back over to Ed.
Thanks. We have a little bit of time for questions. I know if any of you have any questions, you could go ahead. For Dwayne, you can type them in to the GoToMeeting application there, and Bruce Mast can pick those up and pass those along. Bruce, if we have any questions there. I guess one thing, Dwayne, if you would be comfortable sharing with everybody, how would you mind sharing kind of what the average job size is, or how many crews that you have going right now, just to give everyone a sense of kind of the size of your company?
On the residential install department, right now we have 12 install crew members. There's 2 support staff to support that, 3 salesmen, and 2 assessors, and 2 program administrators.
Do you run this as a separate division, or is it just part of your overarching company?
No, it's so, what we found is once a department reaches $1 million, it really needs to be segregated and looked at individually. Otherwise, when you're looking at your financials, you really have apples and oranges. So we passed that threshold 3 years ago, so we've looked at it as its own individual department.
Wow.
Dwayne, we got a question here from the field. Wanted to know how many auditors you had. I heard you say you had 2 assessors. Is that the same as an auditor?
Yes. We just found that the word auditor, it has a negative connotation. So, in our world, we use assessor instead of auditor. So okay. That's just, sorry about that.
And how many employees do you have?
Company-wide, we're right at 70. Just for the residential retrofit department, that department collectively with all support staff and everything is running at 22.
Okay, great. Question from the field, do you use any infrared thermographic analysis as part of your technical analysis?
Yes, that is actually in my opinion, one of the most powerful things that you can do in the home by far. The understanding, take your classes with your IR guns, understand them. It's very, very valuable.
Great. Also had a question, how many assessments you're able to do in a day, and how many man hours or person hours per assessment?
There are 5 hours in assessment, and so that brings up if you can run 10 a week, but you just be prepared for overtime, or right. You can definitely look at the 4-10 situation if that actually works out for your company, and throttle it down to 8 a week.
Wow.
Not have the overtime.
Thanks a lot for being so candid with everybody about about how business is working for you, and for sharing that with everybody else. Thanks. Great.
Thanks much, Dwayne. Let's move on to our next agenda item here, just in the interest of keeping things moving. I think probably a lot of you joined the webinar today to hear about changes in the combustion appliance safety protocols. We did publicize this event to all of our BPI certified professionals in Northern California, because a lot of you are performing, or you're certainly eligible to perform combustion appliance safety tests as part of this program. You've hopefully heard from us. If not, you've probably heard through the grapevine that we're rolling out some augmented protocols for the full program. And the backstory here is that, as you know, combustion appliance safety is a key thing we want to be very attentive to when we do these jobs. We want to make sure that we're not putting anyone at risk of injury as a result of our work. We want to leave every home a healthy home when we're done. Our goal is to retrofit or to improve 15,000 homes throughout the PG&E service territory, and one catastrophic failure is one too many. So we have some very high standards for health and safety around that. And so we reference the BPI standards for combustion appliance safety as the best standards in the marketplace, and nationally recognized and proven standards for this purpose. Through the pilot program, we identified a number of gaps, actually, things that weren't actually covered in the BPI protocols. And so Builder Green has worked closely with PG&E over the last couple months to borrow some protocols from the natural gas appliance test standards to fill in those gaps in the BPI standards. So going forward, the BPI protocols remain in place, and we're going to have these augmented protocols that layer on top of that. We're phasing these in gradually, so you're not expected to know all of these tomorrow based on this webinar. We're developing a in-person training. It's going to be our advanced package technical training that we're going to be rolling out in mid-July. And that's where we'll really get into the nuts and bolts of the protocols in more detail. And at that point, then we'll expect you to be able to apply these protocols in the field. But today's webinar is to introduce these to you and get you thinking about what's coming. You can access those protocols on the website and also give you a sense of how it's going to get phased in so that you can anticipate this a little bit. And like I say, we're going to give you some time to climb that learning curve before we expect you to master all of the details. So with that, I'd like to invite my colleague Steve Mann to take over and talk us through these changes. And why don't we go to the next slide?
Great, thanks, Bruce. As Bruce kind of pointed out, we're just going to get you started with these protocols today. This is sort of like an introductory session. We're not going to drill down into all the gory details. That's really what the advanced training is for. This is primarily to give you an idea of the scope of the protocols and how they differ from BPI, so you can sort of focus on those new items, because we assume that you all are pretty familiar with the BPI protocols. So the source of these things were the BPI technical standards and the NGAT standards. And what we're going to do is these standards are going to be used by everybody involved in the program. It's going to be uniform across the program. It's going to be contractors for testing in and testing out. The third-party QA verifiers and mentors will be using the same protocols, and PG&E's SIP quality assurance folks will be using those protocols as well. So everybody's going to be on the same page. Next slide, please. Okay, in the subsequent slides I'm going to do here for about the next 10 or 15 slides, I'm going to give you an overview of everything, and those things that are different and are derived from the NGAT protocols and methodologies will be highlighted in red, so just to make them easier to identify. Next slide, please. Okay, first of all, these are sort of some introductory concepts. First of all, in terms of failures, just overall, if a CAZ test fails, whether it's a BPI protocol or one of the new extended protocols, the participating contractor may make necessary repairs if they're legally certified to do so and they feel competent to do so, and it just makes sense. That's the first line of defense there. If a problem can't be resolved, then what they can do is call a PG&E gas service representative. The number's on the line here, and this is sort of like your second line of defense. And some of these, you'll see a little bit later on, some of these items require that you do this immediately or within 4 hours, and that you notify the homeowner. These are items that are more safety and hazard-oriented items. So that's the second line of defense. For things that aren't as serious, they need to be reported, and you have to include these items, the items that fail the protocols, in your scope of work in order to actually proceed with any kind of work on the job. And these are basically all things that are related to health and safety if you intend to do air sealing. Next slide, please. Okay, another basic definition, appliances within the living space. On the surface, that seems pretty straightforward, but there are a couple of nuances to that. First of all, it's any appliance that is partially or actually in the living space, including closets that can only be accessed from outdoors. So that might be a hot water heater closet that opens from the outside and in theory has a real nice tight thermal and air barrier between it and the interior space, but we treat it like it's inside the living space. It also applies to appliances you're going to find in garages, attics, basements, or crawl spaces. There's nothing new there. Excuse me. Here's a new one that comes from NGAT. Any combustion appliance that has a vent termination within 4 feet of an operable window or door. The implication there is that somehow combustion gases could leak back into the livable space through that window or door. So we want to make sure that appliances of that sort all get tested. And then here's another interesting one, and this makes a lot of sense to me. Locations where combustion gases can infiltrate a forced duct system. And I'll show you a picture of a sample of that on the next slide or 2 slides. But it's basically any situation where there's an appliance that can leak carbon monoxide or other combustion gases that can somehow infiltrate back into a furnace return duct system. We want to make sure that we check all of those as well, regardless of whether they're inside or outside. Then, once we get through all of those in the living space, anything else that is not in the living space doesn't have to be tested. Pretty straightforward. Next slide, please. Okay, here's an example of an exterior water heater closet that has to be tested. Although, you know, on first glance, you might think it's perfectly harmless, but it's got to be tested. Next slide, please. And here's a case where you've got a water heater that's very close to a return plenum, about as close as you can get without actually, you know, combining materials. And if you look at the return plenum condition there, chances are pretty high that it's a leaky return plenum. So in cases like that, you absolutely have to test everything, even if it's outside. Next slide, please. Okay, appliances outside the living space still have to be tested, just not as rigorously. You have to check for gas leaks, and that's with the gas sniffer and with some kind of soap solution or bubble solution. You have to do the combustion ventilation air calculations just to make sure that they've got adequate combustion ventilation air. And you have to look for other really obvious things like combustible debris piled around the top of the vent or near the pilot light opening, or those types of things, faulty electrical connections, anything that just looks dangerous or hazardous. Next slide, please. Okay. Okay, that's the basic terminology. Now let's just talk about basic appliance inspections. This is before we actually get into the hardcore testing part. This is kind of like the first stage, is kind of like walk-around types of examinations. For all combustion appliances within the living space, you have to check for gas leaks or strong gas odors. That's an NGAT thing, and there actually are appliances that you can test that don't have gas leaks but smell like they have gas leaks. I've got one in my former kitchen, so it's not that uncommon. Another thing, here's the BPI is no soldered flex connectors. That shouldn't be new. You've got to do proper drafting and acceptable carbon monoxide levels, and this is kind of like a high-level overview of the testing stuff. Proper venting, proper adequate combustion ventilation air. It's got to be an operational appliance. There are certain situations that we're not going to talk about today where appliances that are not operational can be excluded from testing, but by and large, anything that's any primary combustion appliance that is not operational is a failure and has to be made operational and has to be tested. So that's like a basic requirement. And then finally, gas dryers have to be vented to the outdoors. No exceptions to that. Next slide, please. Okay, then there's, again, more basic dwelling types of inspections before you get to the hardcore testing. And we already mentioned this one, no flue gases infiltrating forced air systems. So that's, again, another case where you've got combustion air that's close to a return plenum or a return duct system or something like that. You can't have any unvented heating appliances. They all have to be vented one way or another. You can't have any open combustion appliances in an attic with a whole house fan. And then you can't have any open combustion water heaters in a bedroom. And the logic there is you don't want something that can be turned on in the middle of the night while it's got occupants and it starts emitting carbon monoxide, and the results are not very pleasant. Next slide, please. Okay, once you get through sort of the preliminary higher level inspections, then we start focusing on the individual appliance. And for water heaters and gas heaters and forced air furnaces, the basic preliminary inspections are pretty much the same. First of all, you want to make sure that the unit's operational and the pilot light is on. If you're qualified, if the pilot light is not on and you're qualified to light it, you can light it. That's one of those cases where if the pilot light isn't on, it's a failure, but you can fix that immediately in the field if you're certified and qualified to do so. Once you get to that stage, you turn it down in preparation for testing. You remember where it was set. You mark the setting, whether it's the thermostat or, say, the hot water heater dial or the controller for the tankless or whatever it is. You turn it down or turn it off, whichever makes more sense, because you don't want it triggering accidentally during any of your testing. Again, you perform the CVA calculations if you haven't already done that. This is on an appliance-by-appliance basis. Visual inspections include looking for soot pretty much anywhere. It could be on the vent, it could be on the access doors, it could be on the diverters. Any place where there's soot is a red flag that needs to be marked, and the action guidelines have specific recommendations for what you do in those cases. You have to look for dual diverters and missing access doors. I've never seen dual diverters. I have seen missing access doors, so that can happen, especially on older water heaters and things like that. Excess rust and corrosion, again, that's a typical BPI type of test there. And inspect the heater exchange for cracks. Typically, I inspect heater exchangers for cracks while they're lit up. I don't do it when they're not running because it's hard to see them, but you're supposed to do both a pre-ignition and a post-ignition test for heater exchange cracks on any kind of heating device. Next slide, please. Okay, for cooktop and oven inspections, it's kind of similar. You want to make sure it's operational and the pilot light is on. If there is no pilot light, you can match light that. Anybody can do that. There's no special certification requirements for doing that. With cook stoves, we don't, regardless of what's going on with them, you don't have to report any cook stove problems to a PG&E customer service unless none of the burners operate and there's no other means of cooking. That's considered a health and safety red flag. So you need to just make sure that the cook stove is operating and it's the primary source of cooking. You have to check for an exhaust fan, and if there is one, when you're doing the cooktop or the oven testing, you need to turn it on. You want worst case. Well, in this case, it's actually better than worst case. It just helps with the CO testing at times. And in the oven, you want to check for carbon deposits. Next slide, please. Okay, at some point, and this is fairly new from BPI, you want to get a whole house ambient carbon monoxide reading. You start by zeroing your meter outside, like you already know how to do. You turn off everything, set it to pilot or turn it off. Close all the doors and windows to any CAZ zones you've got. And you take a CO reading in the center of the house, 6 feet off the floor, at least 10 feet away from any combustion appliance. And this is sort of your whole house ambient, that's what they call it. If it's greater than 10 parts per million, you should ventilate for 10 minutes in whatever most effective way you have at your disposal. You know, turn on the fan blower, turn on the exhaust hood in the kitchen, open all the doors and windows, whatever. Do all that. Test again after 10 minutes, and if it's still over 10 parts per million, the whole house ambient test fails. Next slide, please. Okay, then we go on to the CAZ Depressurization Testing. This is strictly by the BPI book. No surprises here, no changes. The limits are the same as the current BPI. Carbon monoxide limits, the drafting and spillage limits, all of that stuff should be familiar with this. Next slide, please. Okay, then we go to individual appliance testing, and you're basically looking for carbon monoxide readings. Oh, excuse me there. Okay, carbon monoxide, its drafting, its spillage. Now the difference here is that the trigger levels for failure are different from BPI. There's a whole table in the standards that's derived from the NGAT standards. And so you need to use those as your guideline instead of what you may have grown accustomed to with BPI. And the other thing that's kind of interesting here is that with NGAT, they take appliance ambient temperature, ambient carbon monoxide readings, and I'll describe those a little bit more when we get to those for specific appliances. So you do all these tests, and if the appliance fails for whatever reason, and again, I'm not going to go into all the possibilities, and you can't put it into safe operating condition for one reason or another, it's got to be capped off either by a gas service representative or somebody else who's qualified, and that's considered a failure and has to be corrected. Excuse me. Next slide, please. Okay, back to multiple appliances in a CAZ zone. Again, this is BPI standard. You've got to test them all. You test the smallest BPU input first. Under worst case conditions, if you've got appliances that are commonly vented, you test the smallest one, then you test the next largest one, and then you test them all turned on at the same time, all under worst case depressurization conditions. Next slide. Okay, back to specific water heater furnace testing conditions. Some of these are BPI, some of them are NGAT. Test them under worst case depressurization. You get draft pressure by drilling a hole in the flue. If you can do that, some jurisdictions don't like drilling B-vent, some think it's okay. You need to find out what's allowed in your jurisdiction. If you can do it, you should do it. And it should be in a straight section of the flue, 12 to 24 inches from the top of the draft hood. You turn the appliance on and you immediately check for yellow flame, rollout, delayed ignition. And I just today got a definition of delayed ignition. I was looking for something very specific there. And the definition of a delayed ignition is any delay that causes the appliance to kind of go boom when it actually finally fires up. Now that's not like big boom as in blows up. That's sort of like, you know, excess gas gets ignited and it causes a little bit of a blowout. Any situation like that is considered delayed ignition and is a potential failure. Okay. You check that, then you run it for 5 minutes, and this is the biggest difference from BPI. Normally on BPI you check spillage after a minute and you start doing your other tests after a minute. NGAT says wait 5 minutes, and just sort of informal information. It looks as though BPI may be adopting that standard in its next round of changes, but that's anecdotal information at this point, but it sounds like that's going to happen. So you wait 5 minutes, you check your spillage, you measure your ambient CO level, and this is, you know, outside the, I'm sorry, I've actually got a duplicate here. That's not ambient CO level, that's your air-free flue gas carbon monoxide, and your ambient appliance carbon monoxide level. I've got that in there twice, so ignore the second one or the first one. And that's after the burner is turned on after 5 minutes. When you've done all that, you turn the appliance off, you seal the holes with whatever is appropriate material, and appropriate material is basically, if it's metal, your material should be metal or metal compatible, caulk or adhesive or something like that, high temperature, those kinds of things. When you're done all that, you're good to go. You restore the settings on the appliance to where it was before you turned it down, and restore it back to where the homeowner had it set so they can get back to their life. Next slide, please. Okay, sealed combustion appliances, nothing new here. This is fairly BPI standard also. You go outside at the vent termination or the rain cap or wherever the flue terminates outside, and you test for CO if you can do it safely. And that's a judgment call when you're out in the field. So if you feel comfortable climbing up on a roof and you've got ladders and you've got you know, steady nerves and good balance, you can do that. But if that makes you nervous, don't do the testing. And then the other part here, and this is again NGAT, this is where we do the ambient CO for the units. For hot water heaters, you measure it above the unit, and I believe the guidelines actually tell you how far above the unit. I believe it's 24 inches and within 2 feet of the front or something like that. Then for the furnace, you measure the ambient CO inside the first supply register closest to the furnace. So you have to, and that's considered the furnace ambient CO. So you have to get both of those and record those as well. Next slide, please. Gas dryers, you check for gas leaks only and the fact that they must exhaust to the outside of the building. You don't have to do CO testing on those. So that's a lot simpler. Next slide, please. Gas cooktops, you test the one burner at a time. For CO 12 inches above the surface of the flame, and then you measure the ambient appliance CO with all the burners operating after a minute, 6 feet above the kitchen floor, back in the center of the kitchen, and record both of those. And again, in the case, this is like if you have non-operating pilot lights, you can match light these if necessary. That's not considered a failure type of condition. Next slide, please. Ovens and broilers, similar to BPI, you empty the oven, you turn it on to high, you wait 5 minutes till it gets to steady state, and then you measure the CO above each burner port in the back or wherever it might be. And then again, for NGATs, you want to do the appliance ambient CO after 1 minute in the center of the kitchen, 6 feet off the floor. Next slide, please. Gas log fireplaces need to be tested. And this is kind of, you just turn them on, and again, it's 5 minutes for measuring CO, 12 inches above the flame, But if you have ceramic logs, which is the only kind I've ever seen, but I'm sure there are a lot of other types out there, you have to wait 10 minutes until they reach their steady state, I suppose is the logic there. And then you need to do some kind of smoke test just to assure that the flue or the combustion gas exhaust path, whatever it is drafting properly. If you've got gas log lighters, you only have to check for gas leaks. You don't have to do CO measurements or drafting on those. That would be a little bit silly, I think. Next slide, please. Okay, here's the summary. What I've just gone through is an overview, kind of like the 10,000-foot view. The whole house combustion appliance safety test procedure is out on the portal. You can download it there. It includes about a 20-page detailed written explanation of all of these tests and one of the field checklists, and I'll talk about the checklist in a few minutes. But what we really want you to do, as Bruce mentioned earlier, is everybody has to attend the advanced training. Everybody involved in the program has to attend advanced training, where we're going to drill down on this stuff a lot more and have samples, and it'll most likely, unless we can find a suitable location, be up in Stockton in their testing lab up there, and they've got examples of all of this stuff. For class schedules, check builditgreenutility.org. As Bruce mentioned, we're hoping to start rolling this thing out in mid-July, and we want to get everybody in the program through this training by the end of September, I believe is the deadline. So why don't we pause here for questions? I would ask, I've already gotten questions from several contractors that were very detailed, drilling down to the kind of level of nuance that I also do myself, but I'd ask you to not ask those levels of questions unless you actually can't control yourself. Save them for the advanced training, and fire away.
All right, thank you, Steve. Let's see here. Let's go through some of the questions that have come in so far. The first one is the URL where the combustion appliance safety protocols can be reviewed. You can get to those when you go to the builditgreenutility.org website and you start logging on to do your job submittals. You can download those protocols, and we're planning to publish them on the public side as well, but I don't think we've done that yet.
No, we have not.
No. So we can also, go there and go to the job submittal portion, and if you're participating contractor, you should be able to log on and get the protocols from there.
And I believe I actually have the URL on a subsequent slide.
Okay. The PowerPoint will be available to print out later. Yes, so all of this we'll put up on that resources tab on this builditgreenutility.org website. So you'll be able to go and you'll be able to see the PowerPoint, and you should be able to replay the recording as necessary, especially for your colleagues who weren't able to join us today. Question about, let's see here. No unvented heating devices. Could that mean a space heater? So you have a wall banger.
Yeah. This would be a portable space heater, I'm assuming.
Or just built into the wall even.
It's got to be vented. If it's built into the wall, if it's portable, and I don't, this is my guess is the correct answer, so take it with a grain of salt. If it's a portable space heater like a plug-in roll-around model or something like that, it's generally not considered a primary heating appliance, so it's not considered appropriate for testing. Now, if it was in my house and it was, actually I don't know of any portable space heaters that are combustion-based. They all seem to be electric, although there might be some like that out there, I don't know. I would say use your best judgment. That's the best I can do on that one, sorry.
So the question about who needs to attend the advanced technical training, is it all auditors or just a rep from the contractor?
It's got to be all auditors, anybody who's going out in the field to actually test the houses. Now, if by that you're also including as auditors people that are actually maybe doing the building modeling, then that's not true. But anybody who's out in the field testing these houses has to take this training.
So just to elaborate on that a bit, you might recall that for basic package jobs, it's acceptable for the contractor to sub out the combustion appliance safety testing if they don't have BPI certified professional on staff. And so that sub who would be doing the test, even if they don't work for the prime contractor, would need to have gone through this advanced training and learn these protocols. So if if you're a building analyst or a BPI professional and you want to be doing combustion appliance safety tests as part of the PG&E program, regardless of who you're doing it for, you need to go through the advanced training. Question about the ambient levels. I thought the ambient level may reach 30 parts per million per BPI standards before the home is out of service.
This is an NGAT requirement. This part is not BPI. I'd recommend you go and read the protocols in detail. It has all the thresholds that trigger house failure. But basically, yeah, for this program, the house ambient, anything over 10 parts per million is a failure, with everything turned off.
Yeah. Got a question about the reporting template. Will those templates change?
I'll be discussing that in a few minutes.
Great. Question, do you need to be certified to light pilot lights?
Well, I pointed out two examples where you can. If it's on a cooktop or a stove, you're allowed to do that. I honestly don't know if that's true of water heaters and furnaces. That would be a question for PG&E and a question for the advanced training. By that time, I'll know the answer to that.
Let's see. We've got a question about how Build a Green will be notifying those who have to, all those who have to do the testing. So I guess one thing I can say about that, everyone that's doing the testing presumably has a certificate through BPI. We've been collaborating with BPI to get the word out about this webinar. We'll be doing the same for trainings coming up. And we're going to have multiple trainings over the course of the next few months, so you're going to have several opportunities to get this training between now and the end of September. What is a gas log fireplace?
That's a fireplace that is a gas combustion appliance that from a distance looks like it's actually a nice pile of logs, with the flames sort of, trickling up like on a Christmas morning or something like that. But if you get closer, the logs never get smaller because they don't burn. They're made out of ceramic or some other non-combustible but highly effective heat transferring material. They're actually very good heating devices.
So this would include both the standalone logs as well as the inserts, right, that like pellet burners and things like that?
Yes, yeah.
Great. Does the kitchen exhaust fan need to vent to the exterior?
Good question. I would say for your homeowner's sake, yes, it should. I didn't see anything in the requirements that said that had to be the case, though. So I don't know the answer. There was nothing specific about it in the guidelines, so I think by default the answer is no, but I'll check into that because I personally think it should under all circumstances, yeah.
Question, is the new training different than the advanced training that has already been in place? The answer is yes.
Yes, okay. I'm not sure which advanced training that would be.
Right.
Having only been here a month. Yeah.
Given that these protocols are just now being developed and just now being rolled out, that there has never been training on these augmented protocols before, so by definition it must be different.
There we go. Okay.
Will there be a publicly available register to record the names of the individuals who have done the training? I can say that it won't necessarily be publicly available. We will have a list. We will know who has taken the training and who is not. There may be a question, I guess, about how to find someone who is, if you want to sub this out, how to know whether or not they've taken the training. We'll need to think about how to help with the matchmaking.
Yeah, interesting question.
So that's a good one. We're going to think about how to provide that service. We got time for a few more questions here, then we need to get on to the next half of the combustion safety presentation. What if you're a BPI but do not work for a particular contractor? So I think we covered that already, that you should take this class if you ever think that you will do this work as a sub to a participating contractor. Let's see here. During air sealing and tightening up in the home, do we need to perform combustion appliance safety testing at the end of each day?
If the house is occupied and the air sealing is going to go over multiple days, then yes, you do. You don't have to record those results as part of the program. We just want your initial test in and your final test out. But for safety reasons, you absolutely have to do that, yeah.
So the rule of thumb is anytime you do something that changes the pressurization of the house, you need to test to make sure you're leaving that house in a safe condition.
Yeah.
you need to be BPI certified to do field testing, or can you be employed by a BPI accredited contractor? I think for our purposes for this combustion appliance safety testing, we want every individual doing the test to be properly trained in the test protocols. So we would be looking for certification through BPI that you've got the core protocols and that you've taken the advanced training on the augmented protocols. BPI states that the scope of work needs to include venting the kitchen hood to the exterior if it is a gas cooktop. They don't require it to be, but it must be listed. It sounds like a statement, not a question.
Yeah, and thank you for that clarification.
We have a question about drilling a B vent. Do we have to check with each building inspection group city, or will you provide the information for each city?
We're not really able to provide that information because every building inspector is different, even within an individual department.
Question here is then got a build a green requirement for contractors or a PG&E requirement. So this is these are developed by a PG&E, and they've asked us to implement this. Several of us who took the combustion safety and depressurization testing class at the PG&E Training Center in Stockton in December of 2010. If you attended that class, you need to go through the training again.
Yes.
Yes.
It's different training. I mean, there's overlap for sure, and we apologize for that, but it's not the same training.
Oh, here's an excellent question. Will there be a fee for the training? These trainings are free of charge. The only cost to you is your travel and your time, which I realize is not zero, but does not cost you anything out of pocket.
And we expect it to be no more than a day long and perhaps shorter, so there won't be, for a lot of you, there shouldn't be overnight, hotel costs and that sort of thing either.
Yeah. So we've, I think, answered a lot of the questions that are coming in. You can keep sending in questions as we go forward. Let's go on to the next portion of our discussion here, combustion appliance safety protocols, and then we'll have a chance for a few more questions at the end.
Okay. Next stage is, okay, you've figured all this stuff out, you've taken the advanced training, you're out there doing all this testing and recording results. What the heck do you do with it then? And there's really two documents that need to be submitted with jobs. The first one is called the CAS Measurements Form. It's also called the CAS Data Collection Form. We're going to try and settle on one name for all eternity one of these days. We'll get there. And then the other one is the Whole House Action Guidelines. Now, the CAS Measurements Form is basically a document to record your standard BPI tests. That's kind of its origin and what its purpose is. And then the Whole House Action Guidelines is designed to have you check the extended NGAT-related items. And so you put the two together, and you've got everything you need in order to test in and test out. Both of them can be uploaded to the interim job portal that's available right now. We have people submitting these things. And when Green Energy Compass goes online in mid-July, you can submit them there as well. So these documents will be your primary CAS documents going forward. Next slide, please. Okay, the first one, the CAS Measurements Form, is a fillable, savable PDF form. If you want to load it into your laptop and take it into the field, you can do that. The name's a little bit misleading. It actually has more stuff on it than just CAS measurements, or CAS and CAS measurements. It also is the place where you record building leakage and duct leakage and some of the ambient CO tests. So it's actually misnamed. We might revisit that at some point. It only supports one CAS zone currently, and I just talked to somebody today who told me that 95% of their jobs have at least 2 CAS zones. So we'll probably be modifying it to accommodate that as well. This form is this is version 1.0, and it does have some problems with nomenclature, and it's got some fields that aren't really necessary based on the new protocols. It was based on older protocols. So bear with us. We're going to tweak it as soon as we can to make it more user-friendly and have you record only the things that you need to record and do it in a way that's sort of quick and easy as possible. So, next slide, please. Then there's the Whole House Action Guidelines. This is a companion document to the printed document, the Whole House, PG&E Whole House Combustion Appliance Safety Procedures, I believe is the name of that document, and that's the one that you can download from one of the portals, and I'll show you that in a minute. This is basically a checklist, a 63-point checklist, and this includes all of that stuff that you need to check to comply with not only BPI but NGAT. And each of these items, you're supposed to check for every one of these items, and if you find a condition, excuse me, you indicate that, and then the checklist tells you how to proceed from there. For instance, it might say, okay, you found this condition, correct it yourself if you're qualified, or call a PG&E gas service representative, or shut the house down and notify the homeowner, or whatever. So there's a different action item for each of the 63 items on the checklist. These are all items that have to be checked and dealt with before you can do any air sealing. This is all pre-air sealing stuff, 100%. And some do require calling a GSR for immediate action, so you need to be aware that that could happen potentially. It's got 3 sections. We don't need to go into that. It's take a look at it, and it should be pretty clear once you start looking at it. And at first glance, it looks pretty daunting. It does have 63 items, and you're probably thinking, my God, how am I going to be able to do all that in a 5-hour audit with everything else? Well, once you start working with it, it's really not that bad. It just looks pretty bad at first view. Next slide, please. Okay, here's where you can get some documents. builditgreenutility.org. That's where you can get the Combustion Appliance Safety Protocols. That includes the written portion, which was, again, the PG&E Whole House Combustion Appliance Safety Protocols. That's the written document, plus the Action Guidelines checklist. You can also get the Action Guidelines checklist in an Excel spreadsheet format, standalone, which you can, again, put in your laptop and take out into the field. And it also has a 3-page printable version on a separate sheet inside that worksheet, so that you can just download the Excel part and either take it in the field with you or print out the 3-pager and you're good to go and fill it in, with a pen or a pencil or something like that. And then the other thing that's available on the portal is the CAS Measurements Form. And like I said, that's a 2-page PDF document. Next slide, please. Here's the timelines, and the first one's pretty much passed. Up until tomorrow, you do your CAS testing as per BPI protocols, and you record that on the CAS Measurements Form or CAS Data Collection Form. That's the PDF form. Nothing new about that except there's a new form to submit. And then starting July 1, we want everybody to sometime between July 1 and September 30th do the advanced training. And we want you to also start submitting the CAS Action Guidelines form, either in the Excel template or a printed form. If you want to scan it and upload it to the job submittal site, that's fine too. We don't expect you to know those protocols cold and perform them flawlessly in the house the first few times. We want you to use them, fill them out, get to know them, make them your friend, work with them, and hopefully between now and September 30th, you'll get very familiar, go through the advanced training, and by the end of September, it shouldn't be an issue at all. That's kind of our target. So we want to phase this in hopefully a friendly fashion. On the CAS Action Guidelines, if we find, and we do audit these things, we'll be checking these things. If we do find deficiencies, through our QA verification process or something else, we're going to make sure that you correct those problems in the house, not with the forms themselves, but in the house if there's something that needs to be corrected. But it's not going to sort of funnel through our normal QA process where if you've got some CAS failures things that you didn't pick up on properly, you kind of get demoted to a lower tier and you have to get more verifications done and those sorts of things. We're going to try and be nice about this through the end of September. What happens at October 1st, you have to adhere to all the protocols, no exceptions, and any deficiencies picked up either in the review process internally here or at EGIA or by our field verifiers or mentors will be counted as failures, and the harsh consequences are detailed in the Contractors Handbook. Next slide, please. That was it for me. I guess we could take a few more questions.
Yeah, let's take a few more questions, and then we'll we'll switch topics here. Opening up, go ahead and type your questions into the question box, and have to apologize. Our little question reading screen is smaller than I might like. Let's see, we talked about the fees. Looks like we don't have any additional questions coming in at this point for what we've covered so far.
Okay.
Last call for questions around the combustion appliance safety protocol. All right, well, it looks like maybe we've done an excellent job. Steve, thank you so much for that introductory presentation. And again, this is, we're just introducing the topic today. We are not expecting this to be the definitive statement on these protocols. There will be an in-depth training coming online here in mid-July, and we expect to roll that training out, offer it at least 4 or 5 times between now and the end of September. So you'll have several chances to take that training. So with that, I'd like to switch gears here a little bit. With every webinar, we make a practice of involving a local government partner to tell us what they're doing and some of the great stuff that they're doing that is complementary to the utility rebates. Today, we've asked MIG to come and join us and talk about a cooperative marketing program that the Association of Bay Area Governments is rolling out. And so with us today, we have Deanna Lee from MIG, and welcome, Deanna.
Thank you, Bruce, and Steve, too. You guys are a tough act to follow. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm spelunking in a cave, but I'm in a very echoey conference room, so my apologies ahead of time. But my name is Deanna Lee, and I'm a part of MIG. We're a consulting firm based in Berkeley, and we've been working on a lot of the marketing initiatives involved in Energy Upgrade California. And I'm very excited to be presenting this program to you, an overview of the program, which is actually launching on Friday, July 1st. So in 2 days' time, you'll be able to capitalize on cooperative marketing funds. So off the bat, just 2 things. In order to qualify or to participate in this cooperative marketing program, you have to be, 1, a participating contractor of Energy Upgrade California, and 2, to be participating in one of the 9 Bay Area counties. If you're not familiar with that list, I will rattle it off quickly, which is counties are Alameda, Contra Costa, Marin, Napa, San Francisco, San Mateo, Santa Clara, Solano, and Sonoma. So you'll see the slide that we have up now. It basically just gives you a background in terms of what is cooperative marketing. And essentially, it's, the definition here is 2 or more parties combine marketing efforts and resources to reach a broader audience of prospective customers. If you think about it, we could all individually go after our own objectives and business related to energy upgrade, but if we actually combine efforts and basically promote energy upgrade together, we basically gain the economies of scale that come with it. Next slide. So there are 4 interrelated objectives for our cooperative marketing program. I'm going to go clockwise here. The first is we want to spread the word, and to have contractors help us do that basically is a benefit for us and for the program. We have limited funds that we can use in terms of marketing. But with that, then we can get contractors engaged and involved, which then leads to more upgrades, which is good for everybody. And then also we can reach the objective of creating jobs, which is a energy upgrade program objective. Next slide. So some of the basics, there is $100,000 that ABAG is providing for this cooperative marketing program. Funds are available on a first-come, first-served basis. And basically, with your initial application, you'll be designated $5,000 in matching funds. So it's a 50-50 match. So for every $100 you spend, the program will match another $100. And MIG is administering the pilot program. So you're talking to the source here right now. Next slide. So as I mentioned, only participating contractors and those in the Bay Area counties are eligible to participate. And there's initial $5,000 that you are eligible to receive. And we have basically selected one printer. So there are multiple ways of going about a cooperative marketing program, and there are several constraints that we had in developing this. So what we've ended up doing is we are limiting the funds that are spent have to be spent on printing of marketing collateral, and they must be done through a printer that we've selected. If you are familiar already with the print-on-demand site that we have up already, it's basically all of the printing will go through that same vendor. And once you participate, then you'll be given a link to a specific website where you can conduct all these transactions. And the other thing is that funds must be used within 30 days. Next slide. So as I mentioned, there's initial $5,000 in matching funds that you receive upon your first application. And after that, there is the opportunity to receive additional funds, and that is based on the number of retrofits that you've completed. So for every one retrofit that basically either a basic or advanced upgrade that receives a minimum of $1,000 in rebate to the homeowner and is completed within 3 months of the application, you can receive another $500. There is a cap of $5,000, so you can receive $10,000 total on printed materials. And then these funds are available until all of the money's gone or until January 31st, 2012. So there's about 6 months to go, or 6 months duration. Next slide. So just to give you a quick overview of the process, by Friday we will have on the resource library, which is a part of the Energy Upgrade California website, there will be a folder that says cooperative marketing, and in there there'll be some program guidelines with some specifics about the program, as well as an application with an agreement to sign. So you will apply, and we will basically verify that you are a participating contractor in one of the Bay Area counties, and then from there we'll send you an email with a username, password, and coupon code for you, and a link to the cooperative marketing website for you to go ahead and spend money. So on the site, there basically, and there are 2 ways for you to co-market with Energy Upgrade. One is basically to create your own marketing materials. Now we understand that folks have their own marketing look and feel already established. You want to promote your business, not just Energy Upgrade California. We totally understand that, and we want to encourage that. The one thing is that we do have a few requirements that are specified in the guidelines in terms of what logo to use, some required text in terms of Energy Upgrade California, X, Y, and Z, this is what it's about. And then we do want to have some whole house efficiency language in there. And these are all detailed in the guidelines. They're not, I'd say that they're broad enough that they shouldn't hamstring you at all in terms of promoting your own business. So that's option number 1, which is designing your own. And with that, you can basically, on this cooperative marketing website, there's a place where you can basically request a quote, and then someone will get back to you and give you a quote, and then you can submit your artwork. And then MIG will do a quick review of any artwork that's submitted, and if okay to go, then cooperative marketing funds can be applied to those printing costs. The other way you could go about participating in the program is to just order some of our pre-designed materials. So we have door hangers, lawn signs, informational brochures. Many of these are customizable, where you can upload your own logo and then put your own contact information, even your own website on these, and you wouldn't have to go through the hassle of writing your own copy or getting a designer to design something for you. You can basically go ahead and use some of these pre-designed and available Energy Upgrade materials, but have the opportunity to customize it for your own business. So in each of these cases, once they're authorized to go, the printer will print it, and then later you will get an invoice for 50% of the cost up to $5,000. Anything over the $5,000 is your responsibility. And I'll also note that handling, shipping, and sales tax are not included. So that is the responsibility of the contractor. Next slide. So I've already mentioned these things. So there are a variety of different things that are available on the print-on-demand catalog, and also you can basically, on the custom option, create anything that you want as long as you use the logo that we've designated. There's one text requirement and some messaging requirements. Next slide. So this is just an example. If you are a visual person, you can see that this is actually a direct mail postcard that is specific to a contractor. It's not energy upgrade branded material per se, except that it does acknowledge energy upgrade with the logo there at the bottom. So you can promote your own business, and then we just have a few requirements, and then we will have a designer approval to make sure that the things that we're requiring are met before you can apply the cooperative marketing funds to the project. Next slide. And here are pictures of the 4 different logos that are available. The required text is, as an energy upgrade participating contractor, we can help you improve the energy efficiency of your home and get rebates up to $4,000. Very positive message. And then there's a few different examples of messages for the whole house approach that are on our guidelines. Next slide. And on the other side of things, here is an example of a pre-designed energy upgrade informational brochure, and you can see there's a call out for where your logo would go and your contact information. So this is a great option if you're a smaller participating contractor firm. And it's a very quick turnaround time. You're talking 5 to 7 days for it to be delivered to you. The designs are considered pre-approved, so you don't have that extra hurdle in the process. And I believe it's the last slide. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Deanna. We have some questions coming in from the hotlines here that I'd like to run past you. Okay. Let's see here where we're going to start. We've had a couple questions from folks who are outside the Bay Area to want to know if there are any other co-op marketing pilots like this elsewhere around Northern California.
Not in Northern California, and I believe the hope is that if this pilot goes well, then the state, I think, is ready to roll it out statewide. I'm only aware of LA County putting together one and San Diego, but I'm not aware of any others in Northern California.
All right, so it sounds like the key thing is that we need to work with the Bay Area contractors to make sure that the pilot is a great success so that we can replicate it throughout the entire service territory here, huh?
Exactly.
Okay. We had a question here from a HERS rater who's not a participating contractor but is marketing energy upgrade California improvements to his clients. Wants to know if being a participating contractor is a hard requirement.
I guess I'm not sure where that question is coming from.
Well, is that a firm requirement that is strictly limited to participating contractors who are on the contractor directory, or can you also participate if you're a HERS rater?
My current understanding is it's only for participating contractors. I can double check and see if anyone's given some thought to HERS 2 raters, but that's a great question. Okay,
great. Let's see here. I think that's covered the same thing. We've covered that. Just scanning through the questions here. I think all of the questions we're getting basically fall into those 2 buckets. Geographically, anything outside the Bay Area, it sounds like for the time being the answer is no. And question about whether we can, anyone besides a officially participating contractor can take advantage of this, and we'll need to double check that. It sounds like the answer may be no on that. So,
yeah.
Okay. Deanna, thanks very much for your insights here and getting us up to date on what's coming down with this co-op marketing. That's very exciting. We've got a few more questions here going back to combustion appliance safety procedures that we wanted to address that have been coming in here in the meantime. One question we had someone asking about, I think we might have mentioned this, just worth reiterating, a question about whether the templates, the data forms are changing.
Yes, the two forms that I mentioned, excuse me, and the protocols are all a bit of a work in progress. The protocols themselves are pretty well nailed down, but they will change somewhat, I expect, over the course of the program. The recording documents, the measurement form and the template, more of the measurement form will definitely be changing. And what we're hoping to do is, as new versions become available, to send out an announcement to participating contractors just saying, here's the new form, you should start using it. You know, so, I mean, as a general approach, all of this stuff could change. And it's possible even program requirements could change in the middle of the program. So don't expect things to stay static for the next 18 months. Hopefully we'll be able to keep you informed of the changes in a timely fashion so that it'll work out for everybody.
Great. We also got a note, I think it's important to note that PG&E is going to be updating these protocols from time to time as we identify fixes and glitches and gaps and things like that. We'll be tightening those up and clarifying things if they're ambiguous. We got one minor revision from PG&E just today that addresses the issue of the amount of time that's specified for calling the gas service rep, the GSR, and the version that we've previously posted said up to 4 hours, and that has been revised to just say immediately, so it's just simpler. So we're talking internally about how to track those changes and revisions so that at any given time you can look at the version that you last downloaded, look at the one that's on the website, and see what has changed in the meantime. So we'll do our best to track those changes going forward. We had a question again about where these advanced trainings can take place at this time, because it's going to have a hands-on component and actually seeing and demonstrating some of these methodologies. We do need to do it in Stockton at the Energy Training Center, where we're able to use the test house that's on site there, and so that's the only location that we've identified where we can do that at this time. A question about the contractor's handbook, and someone said they haven't received this. So just to clarify, if you're a participating contractor, you should have received an email from us that has a username and password that lets you log on to the contractor portal at builditgreenutility.org and go into the section that says My Application, where you would update your enrollment status. And there you're able to download a set of documents that pertain to your enrollment. So it's got the contractor handbook, the participation agreement, the combustion appliance safety protocols, marketing guidelines. All those are available for download in that password protected area. We've concluded that we should also be posting those to the public side, so we will be posting those as soon as we can get those up. But for the time being, if you're a participating contractor, you should be able to log on today and get those documents. Let's see here. Yeah.
Hey, Bruce. I wanted to make one clarification on the cooperative marketing program.
Yep.
The cooperative marketing program is specific to the matching funds that I mentioned, but there is a print-on-demand site that basically allows all contractors to have access to those customizable brochures and things like that they can print at their own cost. So that's not something that's exclusive to the cooperative marketing program. Only the matching funds are exclusive.
Great. So anyone can print those documents, and if you're in the Bay Area and you qualify, you can get the cost of printing those documents offset through these matching co-op marketing dollars.
Exactly.
Great, great. A couple more questions here about the combustion safety. CVA wasn't addressed in BPI. Could you please elaborate on that?
CVA stands for combustion ventilation air. It's basically a calculation designed to prove that you've got enough fresh air coming into the combustion zone so that the appliance that's using that air has enough air for high-quality combustion so that there's no evil off-gassing byproducts. And I thought for sure that was addressed in BPI, but I'd have to go back and check that. I know it's been around for a long time, and it's an accepted calculation, but that may be that it is not actually strictly BPI, but it's definitely part of our protocols.
Question here about jobs that are in process. I've got a couple of jobs I haven't submitted yet. Do I need to go back and use the new CAS protocols?
No, you do not. Good news. But what you do have to do is take your testing results and put them in the new CAS Measurements Form and submit that as part of your job submittal. It wouldn't be fair to have you go back and test with the new protocols. And they're not required until the end of September, if you remember the timeline. We encourage you to start using them much, much sooner.
Here's a question. Can any PG&E customer, especially those not involved in Energy Upgrade California, call PG&E and ask for this test work to be done in their homes if they're at all concerned about their safety? So this is not a, well, actually, I'm going to defer that one to Joanne. I don't know if the Central Inspection Program would do this for free or not. Certainly they could call up an energy upgrade contractor and you could go out and do this for a fee. Joanne, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
so
yeah, so there's two responses. PG&E, free of charge to every customer, will perform a safety check if they think that there's any sort of safety issue related to gas, electricity at free of charge. If it's a serious issue, immediately. The specific guidelines are not offered through PG&E. It's specific to this program.
So they could call a gas service representative and have this test done independently of this program. Is that what I understood?
It would not be this precise test.
Oh, not this precise test, but it would cover the same basic safety issues.
Correct. It would be done to ensure the immediate safety.
Right. Okay. Wonderful. Just scanning through, making one last pass to see if there are any questions that we overlooked. Here's a few more that are coming in. Am I trying to figure out which? Thank you, still. Question about getting on the email list to get informed of these changes. So the fact that you registered for this webinar today means that we now know who you are. You're now kind of on our radar, so we will include you in future communications about combustion safety training and advanced training. Yes,
we've got another one that says, do these forms supersede using Energy Pro software? No, they're used in conjunction with Energy Pro. In order to submit a job through the new process, you've got to do the CAS Measurements Form. Currently, you have to do the interim JRT Excel spreadsheet, which is similar to what you were doing with CVPCA. You also have to submit for an advanced job an Energy Pro BLD file, which is the raw data file, and an XML file of the Econ 2 report from from Energy Pro as well. So no, they're in addition to.
We have a question about when the next advanced training will be offered. We don't have it scheduled yet. We're aiming for mid-July. As soon as we get that on the calendar, the fact that you were on this website, this webinar today, means that you are on the hot list to receive a notification about that training as soon as we've got it scheduled and we can open up for registration. So we'll be emailing that out when we have that information for you. Let's see here. This is kind of a general process question about jobs submitted through CVPCA for pre-retrofit approval. Not yet approved. Do they need to be resubmitted to Build It Green? The answer here is they do not need to be resubmitted. If you've already submitted to CBPCA and you have a notice to proceed, we will pick that job up in midstream, and we will honor the notice to proceed that you got before, and we'll just take it up where CBPCA left off. All right, I think we've pretty much covered the key questions that have come in here about combustion appliance safety. We're a few minutes before 4:30, but I think we've pretty much covered. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Also, watch your emails. We're going to be announcing our next webinar in the coming week or so. The next topic will be around the Green Energy Compass website and tracking system and how to start using that. That is a system that you will be able to start using. We expect to have that up and running by our target date is July 11th. And so we'll be putting together a webinar around that to give you a demonstration of what that looks like, and we'll start doing some training on that so you can get going and get set up for that. So that'll be our next agenda, our next webinar topic. So stay tuned for that, and in the meantime, thank you all for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day, and let's go out there and retrofit some homes. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.